Today I'll talk about version control. And why do we have version control? Well, maybe you have used Microsoft Word or uh, an equivalent on Google, and you're writing an essay or something. If you ever use that feature revisions so that it can look back at past versions of your document, that's precisely what Git is for. It's for version control. So basically, it's a program that we use so that we kind of take a picture of the source code, a snapshot in time, what it looks like. So as we go programming and adding new source code, changing, subtracting, we're gonna take a snapshot and we're gonna call that a commit. So through time, we're gonna have many commits, and that'll be at the timeline of your repository. That's what we call it, the project that's managed by Git. And basically, it has so many useful features. Maybe if it's your first time hearing about Git, it might not be so clear. So basically, for example, you build a website, you have a web app, it's running, and you have a team of people, developers, and then there was a slight change to the source code, and that made the app crash in production for everybody. Now everybody's panicking, nobody knows what to do. What happened? Why is the app crashed? And a very easy way to roll back is just go back in time to a different version in the past, because you version control everything. So you're going to know, hey, if I look back at the latest thing that I did, what was it that caused the bug to crash the website? So I can see there and it's registered. So I can quickly roll that back. And other features useful to you could be, maybe you want to look back at decisions that took place in the past to understand, either inform going forward or just to understand what you're going to do. For example, I want to know, why is this code written this way? Why is the product has this following feature, which is very weird? Why didn't think this other way? And you can look back in history and see their decisions, and you're going to understand, oh, actually they thought that way, but they opted to go in this other way because that problem, that problem. So you can understand how the source code changes and evolves over history. So many useful features. Even if you're like a developer, maybe you're a beginner developer, you are stuck, you don't know how to build this feature. What you can do is look back in history and see how people did a similar feature. And then from there, you can just base your solution off of that. So that unblocks you. All right. So, and after that, so we're going to need the Git program. So you can download from this website, git-scm.com. And while you're at it, also you want to register an account on github.com as well. Anyway, many people already have Git installed. So if you want to check if you have Git, all you got to do is go to a terminal and type git space -- version. And you should see Git version there if you already have it. In my case, I have this version 2.41.0. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a directory in my file system. I'll call it introduction -to -git4. I call it 4 because I've already done this before. So it's just a directory somewhere in my file system, and mkdir is to make directory. Now I can cd to that like this, and I can open my Visual Studio Code with code space dot. Okay, I just have a terminal window. If you're a Mac, it just can go open a terminal. If you're on Windows, either CMD or PowerShell or even Windows Terminal will do it. On Linux, it's terminal as well. Okay. Okay. Now with that, we have to identify ourselves to Git if it's your first time ever using it. So let's type some commands to do that. I already have my VS Code open, that's why I didn't run that. So basically, you're going to call git space config space -- global space user.name space, put some double quotes there and type your name or nickname or whatever. Okay, for example, my username, GitHub. And that's your first command. Let me paste that to the Zoom chat. So basically, you have to let Git know who you are. And the first thing is your name. And then once you type that, I already have it, so I don't want to do it again. You're going to do the same thing again, git config / global user.email instead of user.name. And then double quotes, add your email there. Or you can add your no reply if you have a GitHub account. Let me copy that to the Zoom chat. Basically, these commands, they change the content of a file called the git config file that lives in your home directory. If you're on Windows, that's C users, your username / git config. If you're on Mac, it's / I think users, right? / users, username, git config. On Linux / home, username, git config. So basically, if you do a dir of user profile or your tilde or $home on Linux and Mac, you should be able to see a git config file. Let me show you graphically what it looks like, just out of curiosity. So you can see here, I have a file .config, git config, and that's pretty much what that command changes. So if you want to do it manually without going through those two commands I told you, you can just edit this file in your text editor, so long you know exactly the pattern that it wants you to type. Okay, so with that out of the way, you can go back to the code. Here I am in my folder open in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to demonstrate how to use Git to version control. And let's suppose I have a file, text file, call it task.txt, have some message here, save this. So how would I go about version controlling this? So I'm going to open a terminal in my VS Code, control backtick. This one is PowerShell. Let me open CMD, it's simpler. You can choose here. If you've never used this, you can click here to choose your shell, and you can add more plus and trash with to remove it. Anyway, so first you gotta git init. So you gotta let Git know, hey, I want to keep track of this directory. So can you initialize that as a repository? That's the term that's used. And you can read here, initialized empty Git repository. So all it does is create a directory. I think I have to put -a, yeah, directory.git in the current directory. It's usually on Linux systems, dot as a prefix to a file or directory means it's a hidden thing. And it also is considered that hidden in Windows now as well. If you want to ls on Mac or Linux, it's ls, I think, -a to show hidden files. I use Windows right now, so it's dir/a. Okay, so that creates that directory. We don't have to worry about what's inside. Git will take care of that for us. So all we got to do is type interface through Git. So we have to understand the concept of commits again. Let me annotate. So basically what we're going to have in Git is a timeline. So let me write a timeline here. So we're going to get time. Okay, this is a timeline, T. So over time, we'll be making changes to our code. So let's say I added this file. So what we do is what's called a commit, which is a snapshot in time of how the source code was. So we usually represent that with a circle. So let's call that a commit, okay? Let me type the name here in case you don't understand what I'm saying. It's called a commit. Put the yellow. And then, okay, let's say I add this file, I'm going to commit it, and then I create a register in history. At that point in time, me added hello world to this file. And then over time, you're going to have many code changes. Could be another file, somebody changed this file, added something, removed something. So you're going to generate a lot of commits over time. Okay, so let's another commit, another commit, another commit, and so on and so on. Now, this timeline is called a branch. Okay, branch. Let me write it for you here. Branch. And usually we have a main timeline, and that's called either the main branch or historically we used to call it master branch. Now they changed the name to main. Okay, so you're gonna see that a lot, main master branch. And then what happens is this main branch usually is kept. Depends on how people have different ways of working with Git, but one of them is like this. The main branch is the default branch that everybody is, the code is always stable. There's no bugs, there's no problems. So that's the one running in production right now. And then we're going to have developers adding new features. But if they were to change the code right now using the main branch, they could cause problems, right? Bugs, introducing bugs. We don't want that to be manifested in production. So what we do is we separate the timeline. So every developer is going to have their own timeline. And to do that, they create their own branches that branch off of the default branch. So we're going to see this terminology. For example, I'm working on a new feature. I'm going to branch off into my own timeline. This is me branch. Okay, you could call it whatever. It's called usually a feature branch. And in that timeline, I'm going to create my own commits and I'm going to create changes to the code, but you can see that's not reflected in the main branch yet. That's the whole point. You want to isolate those changes so that the main branch, the stable one, doesn't get broken. So what happens is when you complete all your features work, what you do is you take all of those commits and merge them back into the main branch. So you're going to merge your feature branch into the main branch. Okay? So that's what's going to happen. So we're going to take this and merge back. The moment we do that, we're going to move all these commits to the main timeline. So now it has those changes. And then it deploys to production. And then the new features will appear to all the customers, the users. Okay, so this is the typical flow for Git. Now let's demonstrate how to do that in code. Let's go. So I added a file. This is the first time I initialized the repository. So the process of making a commit is a two-step process. First, you got to git add, and then you git commit. Okay? So there's this thing called the staging area, where you first have to move things there too. So you're going to do git add, and then the files you want to add to the staging area. So let's do test.txt. And that's been added to what's called a staging area. But you might ask, okay, how do I know what the heck is going on? What if I forget about this? I come later. Well, that's when the get status command comes handy. So you're going to get status to see what's going on right now. Okay, do we got any changes? What's the deal? So you can see I have changes to be committed. I have a new file, test.txt. Okay, now I know what's going on. Now, the second step of the process is actually making the commit. So we're going to do git commit. But if you press enter right now, it's going to open a text editor and ask for some description. Okay, it opened a new file there. So I got to describe your change. It is called a commit message. So typically we want to be specific about what we did. For example, add hello world message to test file, something like that. So you want to be very descriptive of this description because you want to look back. Imagine you're looking back in history. Maybe you caused the problem, right? I remember production just broke, and I remember the last thing we did was adding this new feature of chat feature. So maybe you want to look in the history and search the keyword chat. But if you don't have a good message, you will not find it easily. So that's why it's very important to describe exactly what you did. Very specific, but you have to be short, right? This shouldn't be something very complex. If you do have something really like you need an explanation why you did this and that, you can always, I suggest you break 2 lines and then you can add longer description here. So you can, write a story. Okay, I tried this and then worked, so I had to do this because of that and that. Usually that's what happens, okay? This case is very simple. I don't need a longer description. So I just add one single line. So I can Control S to save, and I'm gonna close this. And then it finally makes the commit. Now, if you're using Linux-based or Mac, I don't know which text editor is gonna be open when you git commit. If it's VI or Vim, and you don't know how the heck to get out of it, you have to press colon to open the menu to type a command, and W to write, and then Q to quit. Okay, write means save, and Q will exit. Okay, if you get yourself in that situation, don't know what's going on, just go press S, escape, WQ. But this one will save. Okay, if you don't want to save, remove the W. That was just usually like Q exclamation will save without changes. All right, so with that out of the way, this commit is now in the history, so you can see the git log to see what's going on. We have one commit, and you see there's this code here called a hash, and there's an author, which is me, with my name and email. This, by the way, is what you typed when you first identified yourself to Git using the git config command. And the date of when this was performed is, and then a message. So you're gonna hear the term SHA or commit hash a lot, and that's this code here. Every time you commit, it generates this code, which is like points to that commit. Okay, so if you hear SHA, which stands for secure hashing algorithm, it's basically this, or git hash. Okay, commit hash. And you can see this head here is basically pointing. It just means that the head in history is pointing to this commit, and it's pointing here to the master branch. My Git version is using master. Yours might say main. Okay, that's the name of the branch. Which, by the way, you can see if you type git branch, what timeline am I in? I'm in the master one. Okay, so you might hear terms like trunk, main branch, default branch. It's all pointing to this. Okay, great. Now, how do I make another commit? Well, you're gonna go about your work, do whatever you need to do. For example, I'm gonna replace world with there. I save it. Now I know this file's being changed. I can check git status, and I see modified text. Test.txt has been modified. And you see not staged for commit. That means it's in what we call the working area. Okay, so remember, it's always a two-step process. So right now it's not staged. So to stage that, you have to git add file name. Now, if you do git status again, it's been staged. So changes to be committed. Finally, I can type git commit. This time I'm going to add an option -m to show you that you don't have to use an external text editor to type your commit message. If you use the option -m, you can type the message inline here in the command. Let's say replace world with there. That's my commit message. Make sure you put quotes there because you might have separate words, right? And space. And there you go. Now I can check the git log again. I can see at the top, I have my new commit with a different hash. And this one is at the top of the master, right? The latest that I did. And this is the past one. So if I check git status again, there's nothing. Okay, so if you add any new files that haven't been tracked before, Git will not know about it. So you have to manually add them the first time, okay? So be aware of that. So if I add a new file here, hello.txt, if I do git status, you're gonna see it's not tracked, untracked files. So I gotta follow the same process. Git add the file name, git commit, add hello.txt, like that. And then I can see now nothing to commit, and git log will tell me all this stuff. Now, you notice my log has now become so long. it has kind of this prompt at the bottom. That's pagination, okay? If I press up and down my keyboard at the arrows, I can navigate. Now, if you want to quit this, it's Q, okay? Press Q to quit. Q to quit. Okay. How's everybody doing? If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. Let me teach you a couple more commands. Let's say somebody comes along and, okay, we type a message here. And we change the file, right? Hello.txt has been changed. I can check git status. Let's say for some reason I don't have access to a text editor to see the file. Let's say I don't have hello here showing. Let's hide it, close it. How can I see the changes? Well, I can type git diff to see the difference between the, the working area and the top of the branch. So you can see from the difference, the file hello.txt, the plus means added something. Okay, added this line with testing. And then you can do get status. Again, okay, I'm going to add. Remember, two-step process, add. Now, if you do get diff again, just to confirm, it doesn't work. Why? Because now it's in the staging area. So when you do get diff, you compare the working area with whatever's in the branch at the top commit. So if you want to do staging area to the top of the branch, you have to do get diff with the -- staged option. Okay, because you got to compare from the staged area. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to commit. Add some text to hello file. And I tap fast. I press enter before I press my quotes, but it works anyway. If I do the log again, it's there. If you need any help, you can always do git -- help if you forget any command, and it will tell you all the list of commands. You can also reference the website, git-scm.com, documentation, reference manual, and you can see all the commands here. For example, I want to know about diff. You click there, it tells you how to type it and the description, some examples. It's very long, so. All right. And that's Git in a nutshell. You just always follow that same process. All you got to do is remember, just type it somewhere. And always, the more you do, the more you remember. So eventually you don't need to look up your cheat sheet anymore. Now let's talk about changing branches. Go back to VS Code. I think this one. So right now, if I do get branch, I'm in the default branch, master or main for you. Let's suppose I'm somebody who wants to add a new feature. Usually you don't want to never want to commit directly to master unless you know what you're doing. But most cases, as a developer in a team with many people, you don't want to do that. What we want to do is create a feature branch, work on our own features without breaking the main branch. So to navigate or create a new branch, you're going to do git checkout command with the option -b. And then give it a name. Usually I like to name my branches lowercase letters, separate words with dashes. That's my convention. I think many people use that way. It's very simple. Let's say I want to add another file. So this is my name of the branch. Typically you want to name the branch after the feature you're building or whatever you're trying to do. Switch to a new branch, add another file separated by dash. If I do get branch again, Notice how the star is now next to add another file. That's because it means, okay, right now you are checked out and your branch right now is add another file. That's what the star means. Remember, this is a different timeline now. We have the master timeline branch. We have branch off of master. Remember, where you execute get checkout matters, okay? Make sure first you know what branch you are before doing get checkout a new branch. Because if you do it from another feature branch, probably making a mistake. That's very common for people to do. So first, most cases, you want to be sure you are in the default branch first. Get branch, make sure it's master there before you do the checkout to create a new branch. That way you branch off of master. Now we can start building a feature and just add another file, another.txt. Hello. Very simple. Now get status, I can do get add. Remember, two-step process. Get status again to verify, and then get commit. -m, add another file. Okay, now get log to verify. You can see my top is add another file. Now, how do I go back to master or another branch? Get checkout and name of the branch, like master. Remember, no -b. We don't want to create any branch here. Now we're back to master. How do I know I'm master? For sure. Get branch, check the star next to master. Now, if I do get log here, watch what happens. I do not have that commit that we just did. Look at my files here. I don't have another.txt because it's in a separate timeline. Okay? So that's what's so great about Git. So let's go back to the branch just to practice. And press Q here. Why is it not working? There you go. Get checkout. Now I forgot the name of my branch. What do I do? Well, I have to do get branch again. And okay, add another file. Okay, get checkout, add dash another dash file. Switch to branch, verify again. I know it just said there, but just for practice. Okay, you see the file appeared again? It's back to the timeline. Okay, great. Now, at this point, you build your feature, you got all your commits. By the way, you don't have to have only one commit, could be many as you want, in any ways you want. People there are different approaches to how do I commit? Should I commit everything at once or should I do file by file? There are many approaches. Usually I recommend you commit often. And usually it's when you're finished building something significant, like maybe I added a new function that does something. I can commit that function and say, I add a new function to do this. That's a commit. And then I change somewhere, something, I can add another commit. So you can do incremental commits like that. Some people like doing everything at once, like they build a whole feature and they just make one single commit. I don't recommend that because let's say that feature took many days to build. And then if you don't commit until the end, you're not going to save all that code that you wrote all those days. It could be that for some disaster happened and you lost your computer and you never committed. So that means it's not in the record. So you cannot look back. You know, if your computer was trashed, you can always get a new computer. And because Git is it remembers everything, you can always download it again. And for that, we're going to learn about GitHub, which is the next topic. But basically, we usually have a central location or anybody else's. It's kind of distributed, but most people just centralize on GitHub. So in case your computer fails, you can always download it back from GitHub. So make sure to commit often. That way you always have the latest version there whenever, in case something happens. And also it's good for other people to know that the code is already there. Maybe people needed to look at the code, what you're doing, that kind of stuff. Okay, so in this point, how do I integrate my changes back into the main timeline? Well, that's called a merge. Now, usually we do that using GitHub via what's called a pull request. But for the sake of just using Git, let me show you how we do it here. So first you want to check out the branch you want to merge into. This case is usually master or main. So what I'm going to do is I might merge my changes from my branch into the master. So git merge, and then you got to tell the name of the branch. So I'll take all the commits from add another file and then merge into the commits for master. Once I do that, I have my file here, another.txt, and you can see the git log that commit is now present in the master branch. After doing that, we can clean up. If you do git branch, you can git branch -d to delete the branch, add another file. And then we delete it. You can check git branch again. It's gone. So we cleaned up. Okay, so always make sure to clean up after you merge your branches. I suggest you write, if you don't know these commands, write it down somewhere so you can always reference it, because people might be confused. Hey, why didn't you use the git branch command to switch? Why use checkout and all this stuff? So what is the -d? What is -b, right? So to change to another branch, I usually do git checkout. And if you need to create, it's -b. And if you need to delete a branch, it's git branch -d. All right, somebody asked, missed some commands. Give me an overview. You know what commands were run, try to do my term. Yeah. So let me just give a brief overview before we go to GitHub. So basically, we created a directory somewhere on the file system. I called it introduction to Git 4. And to version control the directory, we do git init. Let me see if I can scroll up. Where's that? There you go, here. Right, to initialize the repository. So it creates the directory .git. So if you see a .git directory, a hidden directory, it means it's under version control of Git. After that, we have to make changes or add new files. And we always follow a two-step process to make a commit, which is a snapshot in time of how the code base looks like. And we basically do git add and the file name. And we check the status with git status to see what's going on, if always. And we git commit to finally add a commit with a descriptive message, save it. And if you want to know about the history, git log. It will tell you all the commit history. Remember, each commit usually has an associated hash or SHA that uniquely identifies it. If you want to know what branch you are, git branch. The star next to the branch name means this is the branch you're currently under. You have switched to this branch. And we learned how to commit with -m. Basically, we don't have to open a new text editor window just to write the message. And I taught you git diff at some point to see what changes. Yeah, git diff. If you change anything at all, you can git diff to see what changes were there. And if you're comparing changes from the staging area after you did git add, you got to add --stage. Otherwise, it doesn't appear. And I paste that to the Zoom chat. Let me see. So people can reference it. Hope that's useful to the person who asked. And then we learned checkout to switch your branch. So if you want to check out, switch branch. If you want to create a branch, that's git checkout -b branch name. Let me type this, switch branch. And then, yeah, to merge into master, your feature branch into master. You first check out master, then you get merge name of your branch. And finally, clean up with delete branch, git branch -d branch name. I pasted the Zoom chat. Okay, with that, let's do GitHub. This is all great, but then GitHub came along, which is basically Facebook of coding. What GitHub did was make it like a social media where people can kind of centralize location where they can showcase their source code and other people can collaborate. They can either comment on your code, they can propose new features or report bugs, and many, many other features now. It's grown so much. So create an account on github.com if you don't already have one. Once we're there, what we're going to do is we're going to take the code that the repository we have local, and we're going to kind of push that, that's the name of the term, to GitHub. So we showcase it there. So what I'm going to do is go to I'm basically in github.com. I can go, there are different ways to approach this. So I want to create a repository there. So you can click new in the top left here. You can go to your profile and somewhere here, repositories, you can click new as well. So many different ways. Anyway, it's going to go to github.com/new. So what you're going to do is choose the person under which this will be owned. In my case, I have my org, so I'll choose that. And then the repository name, I'll use the same directory name as I had, introduction -2 -git4. And I'm going to make it public so you can see it. And all the other stuff I don't care about right now. Click create repository. So now it's been created. I have to kind of push the code. That's the name of the term, git push. So there's some instructions here if you ever forget. Now to communicate with GitHub, there's two approaches here, HTTPS. And this one way kind of tedious because it will open a browser window and it asks for authorization. You have to click. And people usually do SSH. And with SSH, everything is done for you, so you don't have to worry about the authentication. Basically, what you got to do is you need to create two keys, a public key and private key. So you give your public key to GitHub so it knows when you reach out, they will unlock and let you go through and upload the files. Now, how do I know I have an SSH key or not? So let me show you. Going to the terminal. So usually the keys are kept in a standard location, .ssh directory in your home directory. Okay, let me open a new window. So my home directory Windows is this one, which you can see from the variable %user profile, like this. You can see the value. If you're on Mac, it's either $home or tilde. That's the same for Linux, which is going to translate /home/username of Linux /user/username of Mac. So basically here you can check if there's a directory .ssh. So dir.ssh, I have it. If you're on Mac or Linux, it's ls.ssh. Or you can just ls-l to see if you have it by I. And this directory, we're going to have our keys. Usually it's .pub for the public key. And the other one is the private without the extension. So if you have this directory, usually id ed 255.19.pub, you already have a key. If you don't have a key, how do I create one? Let me show you how. I'm going to use the command ssh keygen, ssh-keygen. The option -t, you got to choose the algorithm ed 255.19. That's the now recommended one. And -C, quotes your email at mail.com. Let me copy and paste this so you can get it from the chat. If you do this, let me do a demonstration here. I'm going to rename mine because I already have it. So let me rename. You don't have to do this. Oops. Let me CD to that before. You don't have to do this. I'm just moving my file here to demonstrate. Oops. Okay, now that I don't, it's assuming I don't have it, I'm gonna do the keygen dash TD 25519 dash C capitalize my mail mail.com, enter. It's gonna ask where you want to save the file. I just use default, okay? I recommend you use default, just press enter. Otherwise, it's gonna be a mess. It's not gonna work off the bat. And you might want to debug and know where's your key. It doesn't know where it is. So just leave it default. If you want to passphrase, you can do it. I don't usually do it. Enter, enter. And you see it generated this file for the public one, which is .pub. That's the one you want to give to GitHub. The other one's the private you want to keep to yourself. And what you want to do is, I'm going to cat. If you're on Linux or Mac, it's cat command. And on Windows, it's type .ssh if you're not already there. And ID 255.pub. That way I can copy this contents of the file. Basically, the type or cat command shows you, prints the content of the file to the screen. Okay. There you go. Somebody asked for the keys, what is PPK? You don't have to worry about that. That was just my stuff. That was my files. Yours probably doesn't have the files. Pub is public, correct. .pub is public. Private is the one without extension, yes. For SSH, we always use git at as the user. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. That's, yes. On GitHub, you adding a remote, it's always git at github.com:. Okay, so copy this, and we're going to go to github.com to let GitHub know about our public key, SSH key. If you don't already have this, okay? This is only for people who never done this. You don't have it. Okay, we're gonna go to click to your profile settings. And you're gonna click SSH and GPG keys. Let me copy the link. You're gonna do that. And then you're gonna click new, okay? Let me do that here. Let me give you the direct link, by the way. You can go directly to that link on Zoom if you don't want to click through. So click SSH, click new on the top right, and it should be here. So you want to paste that to the key here. And then give it a name that's so you can remember this. Basically, I always like to add my user, whoever, on whichever computer. Because you could have many computers and different keys. I don't know where the heck this key is from. So I usually put my computer name and usually the user, because there could be multiple people using the computer with different keys. So something like that. Me at my computer. And then click add SSH key. And GitHub will know it's you now. I already have it, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, once you do that, let's go back to the repository. And what you're going to do, we got to kind of upload this in Git terminology as push. So let's go to the terminal. I'm going to go back to the... Oh, actually, let me go back to VS Code because I got a terminal there. So this terminal VS Code is open to my project directory. And I have to first let Git know what my remote is. When we have somewhere else where we want to keep the code, that's called a remote. Right now we are on local, right? How do I add a remote? Well, git remote, add. You got to give the remote a name. Usually we call it origin. Space, now you got to give that address that GitHub tells you in the website. If you go here and click SSH, okay, if you're using SSH, you got to click SSH. I got to copy this one here. Okay, it always follows the same pattern. If you do it a lot, you know exactly how to type without even copying that. So basically, it's just list pattern of git add github.com, like somebody asked, colon, and then owner slash repository name dot git. Once you do that, you can verify your remote to get remote -v, which stands for verbose. You should see two of them for origin. One is for fetch, one for push. So fetch is like download, push is like upload. So when you need to get code, retrieve it from GitHub, your fetch, git fetch. If you want to send code to GitHub, it's push. Now, right now we need to send code to GitHub, so we're gonna do git push. So git push. Now we gotta say, what's the name of the remote? Origin. Okay, what branch? Master. Git push origin master, all separated with space. Now, before you do that, if you want to be lazy and the next time you do this, you don't want to type origin master, you can just type git push. You can use the -u option the first time here. That's going to track the branch. Okay. Now it's giving me permission denied because my SSH key is not properly configured. Remember, I changed my files. Well, let me change that back. So let me know if everybody got it right. If you got this error, that means something's wrong with your setup. Meanwhile, I'm going to go there and rename my files back. Let me see. .ssh. Here. Move ID. Move ID. Pub2. ID pub. Move ID. Two. Okay, move the files. Let's try again. Now it's working. I can see branch master set up to track. So the next time I can just git push without origin master. Now let's see GitHub. If you refresh, you should now be able to see your files here. So on GitHub, there are many features. This is the files feature or the source code explorer. You can see your files just like we did in our local file system. You can click that to see the content and you can browse through them here. If you go back to the repository, you can add a README. If you add a README file, it will appear here automatically. And some features you might be interested in is the commits, which is basically git log. So GitHub is like a front to it's like a pretty face interface to Git. Okay, behind the scenes, it's using Git. Okay, so if you want to see the Git log, basically the feature is the commits feature here. You can see all the history. You can even click each one of them to see what was done at that point in time. You can see this one, it will tell the changes before and after. There's two views, the split and unified view. Split view, you can see before on the left-hand side, and right-hand side is after. So I can see I added a new file with hello. If you want to see unified, is like this. Let me show you a more useful one for unified. If you go back to commits view, I think this one, replace world of there. This is before and after. You can see the red color is what's removed, and then the green what's added. If you do unified, maybe you find it easier to see together like that. Okay, going back to code. So basically, people will use GitHub, like I said, to collaborate, and there are many other features. There's the issues feature, which is basically you can either track things you got to do. Maybe somebody can go and report on some problem. And then we got the pull request feature, which is basically we're going to add, it's basically proposing new changes. Okay, if you have any new change you want to propose, you would, instead of doing that merge that we did locally, you would take your feature branch and propose the changes from that branch into the main branch here. And there's actions, which is basically continuous integration, continuous development. So you can run automated tests. You can run a lot of automated things, deployment, lots of useful things. This is very useful. Typically, the use case is you submit a pull request to propose changes, and then a lot of tests will be run to make sure you didn't make any regression tests, the regression bugs. Make sure your code doesn't have any problem, and it's up to code with whatever project requires for a code quality. And other use cases are deployment. Maybe when you merge into master, the main branch, that's going to automatically trigger a deployment. You're going to launch a new version of the product automatically whenever that happens. That's very useful, so many things. You can even use it for things not related to that. Okay. And there's projects, which is basically a Kanban board. You can create a board of things like columns to do, in progress, done. I usually use that for your stand-ups when you work in a team to tell your teammates and the manager what you've been up to. And there's a wiki. There's some security tab for security-related stuff. You can get alerts about using a version of software dependency that's has a bug or has some exploit somebody found. And many other features, code scanning, secret scanning. Basically, if you put like a sensitive information in your code base, which you shouldn't do ever, never commit sensitive passwords and tokens, that kind of stuff. This will kind of scan for it and find that for you. And insights is just kind of stats about your repository. You can see I'm the top contributor. If I click contributor, it's going to crunch some data about it and some settings there. Okay, so lots of features there. Here, I'm the top contributor. Anyway, if you have a lot of people working in the project, you're going to see a lot of people there, and maybe people compete to be the top. Yeah, so that's GitHub in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me know.